So I want you to take a deep breath, just right now, and take a sip of water, or, just imagine taking one.
Right, getting grounded.
Exactly. Because the atoms you just inhaled and the water molecules you just swallowed, they are absolutely identical to the atoms sitting inside a dead rock on the side of the road.
Yeah, there is no special, like, magical life particle that you have and the rock doesn't.
Right. So why are you alive and the rock isn't?
Well, I mean, that is the ultimate line in the sand, isn't it? The precise moment when ordinary chemistry somehow crosses a threshold and becomes biology.
Welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to explore one of science's genuinely unsolved mysteries, which is how inert, non-living matter arranged itself into something that, well, feeds, grows, and copies itself.
And we should be clear, we are not going to pretend to have a neatly wrapped answer for you today.
No, definitely not.
Right.
But we are going to explore the really tangible, mind-bending progress that science has made in figuring out how it could have happened. Because we aren't just taking wild guesses anymore.
No, we have real, testable ideas now.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we want to solve how chemistry became biology, it seems like we first have to agree on what actually separates a complex chemical reaction from a living creature. Like, where's the actual line?
Defining life is notoriously tricky. I mean, if you ask 10 scientists, you might actually get 10 slightly different answers.
I can imagine.
But most scientific consensus circles around 3 core rules, or capacities, I guess, that a thing must have to be considered alive.
Okay, what's rule number 1?
First, you need a physical boundary. So, a barrier separating the inside from the chaotic outside world. Think of a cell membrane.
Because if your chemical reactions are just floating free in the open ocean, they just dissolve, right?
Exactly. You need a container to have a distinct thing in the first place. Without a boundary, you just have diluted chemicals.
Right, makes sense.
Then that contained entity must have a metabolism.
A metabolism.
Yeah, and by metabolism, we simply mean the engine. It's the ability to pull energy and raw materials from the surrounding environment to, maintain itself.
To keep the lights on.
Right, it keeps the chemical reactions running so the whole structure doesn't just decay back into dead matter.
Okay, so we have a container and an engine inside it.
Mm-hmm.
That covers a lot of things, though. I mean, a car has a boundary and an engine.
Yeah, it does.
Even a flame kind of has a boundary and consumes energy.
Which brings us to the third crucial rule. And this is the one that separates biology from, say, a machine or a fire. The entity must be able to reproduce.
It has to make copies of itself.
But specifically, it needs to reproduce with variations. Imperfect copying.
Let me try an analogy here to make sure I'm visualizing this mechanically.
Sure, go ahead.
Imagine a factory. A factory with 4 walls is our boundary, right?
Right.
And it uses electrical power to run conveyor belts and build products. That's our metabolism.
Spot on.
But if that factory can somehow build functioning copies of itself down the street, and those copies have slight modifications, so some of them are even more efficient, that's where natural selection takes over.
Yes.
So are you saying that imperfect copying is the real fundamental spark of life?
It really is the ultimate driver. Once an entity copies itself with slight, random variations, nature simply filters them.
Because some will just be better at surviving.
Exactly. The versions that are physically better at surviving and copying themselves will naturally outnumber the fragile ones.
And natural selection kicks in.
Yeah, and you are officially on the evolutionary road that leads eventually to blue whales and human beings.
Okay, so if life is essentially just a microscopic factory that makes imperfect copies of itself, that means life isn't made of magic. It's built of physical parts.
Just ordinary matter.
Right, so where does a completely dead, violently chaotic planet, roughly 4 billion years ago, even get the parts to build that first factory?
Well, this is where the narrative takes a surprisingly optimistic turn, actually. We have to trace it back to Stanley Miller and Harold Urey's famous 1953 experiment.
Ah, the Miller-Urey experiment.
Yeah, they wanted to see if the basic building blocks of life could assemble spontaneously under the really harsh, volatile conditions of the early Earth.
So they essentially built a miniature prehistoric Earth in a chemistry lab.
They did. They set up this sealed looping glass apparatus, and into it they pumped simple gases like methane, ammonia, and hydrogen.
To mimic the ancient atmosphere.
Exactly what we believed the atmosphere was made of at the time.
Yeah.
And then they added a pool of liquid water to represent the early ocean.
And the young Earth was pretty violent, right?
Very. So to simulate the massive lightning storms that just battered the young planet, they ran continuous electrical sparks through the gaseous mixture.
And then they just stood back and let it cook.
Yeah, they let it cook for a week, and the water inside slowly turned pink, and then eventually this deep, muddy brown color. And when Miller finally extracted and analyzed that brown gunk, he was stunned. He found amino acids.
Okay, just to make sure we are connecting the dots for everyone listening. Amino acids are the raw materials that link together to build proteins.
Right.
And proteins are the physical machinery of a cell.
That's it. Proteins do the heavy lifting. They digest food, they build tissues, they form the actual structural scaffolding of a cell.
So Miller essentially generated the core structural components of life from absolutely nothing but simple gases, water, and electricity.
Just raw, dead chemistry.
It's almost like taking a box filled with nothing but loose graphite powder and water, shaking it up with some static electricity, and suddenly opening it to find perfectly woven carbon fiber thread inside.
It's a great way to put it.
It just seems impossibly lucky that chaos would yield such complex components.
It felt that way at the time, certainly. Now, decades later, we've learned the early atmosphere was likely, well, a bit different than Miller's exact recipe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the broader implication of his work has only gotten stronger. We've discovered that these molecules form readily all over the place under a massive variety of conditions.
So it wasn't a fluke.
Not at all. We found amino acids inside ancient meteorites that have crashed into the Earth. We have even pointed telescopes into deep space and detected the ingredients for biochemistry drifting in massive interstellar gas clouds.
Wait, really? The universe is basically littered with these parts.
It is. The raw materials are not the bottleneck at all. The cosmos makes the basic bricks of life constantly.
But having a pile of carbon fiber thread, or scattered bricks, doesn't mean you have a functioning factory.
No, it doesn't.
How do those bricks assemble themselves into something that works? Because in modern biology, we have a very strict division of labor between two main types of molecules, right? DNA and proteins.
Right. They have highly specialized roles. DNA stores the information. It is the vast library of genetic code telling the cell how to operate and how to build everything it needs.
But it's just information.
Exactly. DNA is strictly an information database. It doesn't perform any physical labor.
That's the protein's job.
Yes.
They are the actual physical workers driving the chemical reactions and assembling structures based on the DNA's instructions.
And here's the paradox that had scientists practically tearing their hair out. DNA is far too complex to copy itself. It relies entirely on protein workers to read its code, unwind it, and duplicate it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Wait, I'm confused. If the DNA relies on proteins to copy it, but the proteins can only be built using the instructions locked inside the DNA.
You see the problem.
Which one comes first? It's like needing a highly advanced robot to read a complex blueprint, but the blueprint only contains the instructions on how to build that exact robot.
Exactly.
You need both functioning simultaneously just to exist? How does a blind chemical universe solve that?
It seems like an insurmountable wall, right? If DNA needs proteins and proteins need DNA, how could this interdependent system naturally start from scratch?
It feels impossible.
The assembly process needs a bridge. And this brings us to the RNA world hypothesis, which offers a profoundly elegant solution.
Okay, I've heard of RNA mostly as a chemical cousin to DNA. But how does introducing a third molecule fix this? Doesn't that just complicate the whole chicken and egg paradox?
Well, what's fascinating here is that RNA has a remarkable double talent. Structurally, it is very similar to DNA, though a bit less stable.
Okay.
And like DNA, RNA is perfectly capable of carrying genetic information. It holds data beautifully. But unlike DNA, which mostly stays in this rigid, passive, double helix shape, certain RNA molecules can fold themselves up into complex three-dimensional shapes.
Meaning they take on a physical structure, almost like a tiny machine.
Yes, and those physical structures allow them to act as tiny tools that drive chemical reactions.
Wow.
A job we previously thought only proteins could handle. So RNA can be both the genetic instruction manual and the physical worker. It can store the information and physically catalyze the reaction to copy itself.
That is wild. It's like having a paper blueprint with detailed written instructions on how to achieve flight. But you can also fold that exact piece of paper into a paper airplane, and it actually flies.
That is a perfect analogy.
The information and the physical machine are the exact same thing.
That analogy captures the mechanics perfectly. So, under the RNA world hypothesis, early life didn't need DNA and proteins to emerge simultaneously.
It just needed RNA.
Right. RNA ran the entire show by itself, acting as a self-copying molecule. Later, as life complexified, RNA handed off the long-term information storage to DNA, which is far more stable.
And it handed off the physical heavy lifting to proteins, which are much more versatile.
Exactly. Specialization, it outsourced the jobs.
But is this just a neat theoretical story, or do we have actual evidence that RNA used to run the world?
Oh, we have molecular fossils inside our own cells right now.
Really?
Yes, the most fundamental machine in every living cell. The actual factory floor that reads genetic code and stitches amino acids together to build proteins is called the ribosome.
Okay, the ribosome.
Yeah. And the core of the ribosome, the engine doing the actual chemical linking, is not a protein. It is built entirely of RNA.
Wait, the very machine building proteins is an ancient RNA relic.
Precisely. It is exactly what you would expect to find if RNA was originally the master molecule.
Okay, let's do a reality check here. Have we actually built a fully self-copying RNA paper airplane in a lab from scratch? Like, have we seen it happen?
We haven't, and that is a crucial distinction between a compelling theory and established fact.
So it's still a hypothesis.
Right. We've synthesized pieces of the puzzle, we have observed RNA catalyzing reactions, but creating a fully self-replicating RNA molecule from scratch, under plausible early Earth conditions, that remains an incredibly difficult work in progress.
Even if we assume RNA is the answer for how assembly happened, it leaves us with a massive question of where.
The location.
Yeah, because the early Earth was battered by meteorites, bathed in intense radiation, and choked with toxic gases. Where could a delicate chemical paper airplane survive long enough to start copying itself?
Location scouting for the very first life is fiercely debated. I mean, Charles Darwin famously envisioned a warm little pond.
Right, the classic pond theory.
The idea being that shallow, land-based pools could repeatedly dry out under the sun and refill with rain, concentrating the chemical ingredients tightly together until they sparked into action.
I mean, the drawing pool idea makes sense for getting ingredients packed together. But you're going to tell me there's a more dramatic candidate, aren't you?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, many modern scientists are actually looking deep underwater, specifically at deep-sea hydrothermal vents.
Okay, picture this for us. We're miles down in the pitch-black ocean.
You are on the crushing, freezing ocean floor. And a hydrothermal vent is a fissure where seawater has seeped deep into the Earth's crust, gotten superheated by subterranean magma, and then gushes back up into the cold ocean.
Sounds intense.
It is. Over time, the minerals in that water precipitate out, forming these towering, jagged rock chimneys, billowing out dark, boiling, mineral-rich fluid.
That sounds like an incinerator. How could that possibly be a cradle for delicate chemistry?
It seems completely hostile, I know. But when you look closely, it offers a perfect checklist of necessities. You have a constant, uninterrupted flow of energy from the Earth's heat.
Okay.
The vent fluid is heavily packed with those raw chemical bricks we talked about earlier. Furthermore, the rock chimneys themselves aren't solid. They are highly porous.
Like a sponge.
Yeah, they are filled with millions of microscopic natural mineral compartments.
Oh, I see where this is going. The very first rule of life we established was a boundary.
Yes.
So the rock itself acts as the first cell wall, trapping the chemicals inside a tiny pore so they don't wash away into the massive ocean.
That's the theory. The Earth itself provided the structural container. But the most vital feature of these vents is how they could power a primitive metabolism.
The engine.
Exactly. Deep-sea vents provide natural chemical gradients that act exactly like a battery.
Hold on, walk us through how a chemical gradient actually works as an engine. Don't gloss over the chemistry for me here. How does a rocky vent physically power a cell?
Okay, let's look at the mechanics of the water. The hot fluid gushing out of the vent is highly alkaline. In chemistry terms, that means it has very few electrically charged particles called protons.
Got it. Low protons in the vent fluid.
But the ancient freezing ocean water surrounding the vent was highly acidic. It was absolutely packed with protons.
So you have a pocket of fluid with almost no protons pressed right up against an ocean loaded with them.
Yes. And nature despises an imbalance. Those protons in the ocean desperately want to rush into the alkaline vent fluid to equalize the pressure.
Like air rushing out of a punctured tire.
Exactly. If you have that porous rock wall acting as a barrier separating the two fluids, the protons will push aggressively through any tiny microscopic gap they can find.
And that does what?
That physical flow of charged particles across a barrier works exactly like water flowing over a hydroelectric dam. It turns a turbine. It generates tangible, harnessable energy.
So a primitive bundle of RNA and amino acids sitting inside that rock pore just harnesses the current of those protons rushing past it. That's incredible. It's a literal geological battery.
It is. The Earth was actively providing the boundary and the power source, giving inert chemistry a safe, charged incubator to figure out the complex mechanics of reproduction.
So what does this all mean? We have raw materials easily synthesized by the universe. We have RNA elegantly solving the assembly paradox by acting as both blueprint and machine.
Right.
We have deep-sea vents providing geological cell walls and proton-powered hydroelectric dams. Why is this still considered an unsolved mystery?
Because in origin of life research, it is very easy for confident storytelling to outrun hard evidence. We fall in love with the elegance of the RNA paper airplane or the deep-sea battery.
We want a neat cinematic narrative.
We do, and the reality of hard science is refreshingly modest. We have highly plausible, testable mechanisms for isolated steps.
Like Urey.
Right. We've proven amino acids form. We've proven chemical gradients generate harnessable power. But we haven't successfully strung all these isolated steps together into a continuous demonstrated pathway in a laboratory.
I see.
We can't put raw materials in a simulated vent and watch a microbe swim away.
And we can't exactly go back 4 billion years to check our work in the field either.
Well,
The rocks have been recycled by tectonic plates, and early life probably consumed whatever chemical evidence was left over anyway.
true. But the uncertainty isn't a failure. It's the thrill of an active frontier. This isn't abstract philosophy anymore. Thousands of scientists are running these precise tests, attempting to build self-replicating molecules and sending submersibles to study vent chemistry in real time.
It's a painstaking, step-by-step march toward the truth. Let me recap this unhurried journey for you, because seeing the pieces assembled is just staggering. 4 billion years ago, ordinary chemistry crossed the line.
It certainly did.
We know the universe effortlessly builds the structural bricks. We have RNA showing us how a single molecule can store data and physically feld into a functioning machine. We have deep-sea chimneys offering natural walls and constant chemical energy.
All the right conditions.
The specific sequence of events is still being decoded, but the did it happen is undeniable. You, listening right now, you are the living proof.
And the implications of cracking that sequence are profound, especially as we send probes to the ice-covered oceans of moons like Jupiter's Europa and Saturn's Enceladus, which harbor their own deep-sea hydrothermal vents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if we find even a single independent microbe there, it proves this transition from chemistry to biology is common. It means the leap from chemistry to biology isn't a freak accident. It's easy, it's common, and the universe is likely teeming with it. That single discovery would completely reshape how we see our place in the cosmos.
Thank you for walking us through this incredible timeline
Yeah.
and bringing clarity to the sheer mechanics of it all.
It was a real pleasure.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If that leap from dead chemistry to biology really is easy, and the universe is naturally teeming with microscopic life, why haven't we heard from anyone else?
The big question.
This brings up a concept known as the Great Filter. The idea is that maybe sparking life is the easy part, but surviving long enough to build complex societies, spaceships, and radios, maybe that is nearly impossible.
It's a sobering thought.
If we eventually discover ancient microbes on Mars or Europa, it might be thrilling, but it might also mean the hardest, deadliest test for life isn't being born, it's avoiding extinction. Think about that the next time you take a sip of water. Until next time, stay curious.